Hi everyone, this is Rebecca from ChemKnits, and can you feel the heat of the sunshine today? It is bright, it's going to hit 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and what better day to try out some solar dyeing of yarn. Now, I'm not using a dye or anything that will be activated by UV light, but we are going to use the sun as our heat source to dye some yarn with food coloring. I'm not sure what size my mason jar is actually. I was running around trying to look, but it's the largest one I have. So hopefully we'll be able to squish the 100 grams of Stroll fingering weight yarn into the jar. This yarn is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And it's one where dye strikes fast and beautifully. I am not pre-soaking the yarn. It's going to be in the jar for a while. And yeah, I don't mind uneven color, and I sort of want to see how things turn out. As for the dye source, I'm going to use the Wilton Colorite Performance Color System, which is a liquid food coloring system. And I am popping on gloves purely so that I do not color my hands with the food coloring. Now, to our 1 cup of water, I'm going to add a tablespoon of vinegar. Right now, this proportion of vinegar to water is really high. Frequently, I'll use between 1 and 3 tablespoons of vinegar and 8 cups of water. I'm expecting to add more water to our jar, but I wanted to start layering things. The 2 colors I'm planning to use today are blue and yellow. And I picked these colors because they do not have red number 3 in them. Of all of the food coloring colors, red number 3 I think is the one that is most likely to fade in the sun, and we're going to be leaving this in direct sunlight, so I figured let's try for some blue, green, teal type colorway. Let's start with 10 drops of blue. 5, 6. The Colorite system is has a lot of dye in it. It's very pigmented, and it's also not very liquid. You can see that the drops are really heavy and sort of sink to the bottom. So with this first level of application, I'm just swirling it in the jar to mix it up. I could have decided not to mix it, but I thought that this would be just a nice little touch. Okay, now I'm going to take my hank of yarn and start adding it to the jar. And then I will add more water and potentially add some yellow as well. But one of the things I am most curious about is how far will the color suck up the yarn. I know that, I guess the other thing with the reds is that red number 3 will strike really fast. And so even without heat. So I picked some colors that require, okay, it looks like that this level of water might go up rather high. You saw that I just used a spoon to help push the yarn down. I believe I'll be able to fit all of the yarn in here. But now, before I add the rest, I wanted to add some drops of the yellow. And it's sort of going to be onto the bare yarn, but 2, 3, and that one might be more towards the top, 4. So I'm not sure if you could really see, but the drops are around and some of them are headed down a bit, but we might get, I don't know if we're going to get a gradient through here. I've never tried this before, but we should get something kind of cool, I hope. I'm now not going to be shaking this, and now I do need to add some more water. So you can see that with the 1 cup of water, the level it got to is about here. And now that all the yarn is stuck in there and it's not pre-soaked, It will take a little more time for some of this water to go in. So I'm just going to be slowly adding some more water until I get a water level on top of the yarn. And can you see that these yellows that I'm adding are spreading out, and I see some green going down the side as well. We could definitely end up with some white, but I wanted to see what would happen from adding some dry yarn. I'm not measuring the volume of water that I am adding here, but I'm actually pretty glad that I did not start with more than the 1 cup. The water is going, sort of soaking in pretty reasonably. I do not want to, at this stage, I do not want to squish it too much. I guess we're doing okay. So maybe the water just sort of, the blue water squished up along the sides because I'm adding way more water than I had expected I should be able to. But all of this water is to give the dye a chance to diffuse. And I think that the default will be for the dye to sink down. Okay, it looks like I might add a tiny bit more water. And because I'm curious to see how stuff will travel through, I'm actually going to add, it's possible that stuff will soak all the way through the top, but I do think I want to add a little more color. So I'll now be introducing some of those red number 3s I talked about avoiding, but here is some of the base black color. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and that water, did the water soak in more? Yes, of course it did. Here I go thinking that we have added all the color, or all the water I needed. Apparently I can add some more. Okay, so now I've added this on top, and I'm curious, how far will it sink down? A tiny bit more water. Okay, now let's seal up. Let's seal up the jar. And now I'm going to carefully take this jar outside. Before I move the jar outside, I wanted to kind of give a little look. We've got some yellow and the blues, section of white, another nice section of yellow, some blue coming up, and the black is slowly dripping down. It is 9:30 a.m. and I just brought the jar outside. You can see maybe that some of the colors did move a bit from, ooh, it's bright. That some of the colors did move a bit from me carrying it out, but I'm really excited to see how they mix, how they don't mix, how much white is left. There's a lot of yarn in the way, things are jam-packed, and this is a reasonable experiment. It's possible I might have wanted to layer the colors in a bit more, but yeah, I'm just planning now to leave this out here all day so we can see what happens. I'll check on it periodically, but I can say I'm already melting. It is a hot day out. It is now a little after 11 and some of these colors are definitely spreading. I see some yellow streaking down but also up, which is really cool. Yeah, there's still a white patch, but the black Okay, I don't know, it's bright, so I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see, but it's definitely breaking. I see the reds sort of coming down to about here, and then some of the blue-green around the outside. That is really, really pretty. I'm not sure, because of the angle and stuff, if that's really going to show through, but yeah, this is great. Let's see. Okay, when I came out and checked a little while ago, it didn't quite feel warm yet. It still felt a little cool to the touch, but we're definitely feeling warm now after about an hour and a half. It's not quite 1 p.m. and I just shifted it over because we're starting to get some shade where this jar is located. I see the color spreading a reasonable amount. That black, which again, since I'm outside, I can't tell how much you can see. I see some of the reds and the greens sort of fading down the side. It looks really, really cool. There's still a little bit of white showing, but the colors are spreading out really nicely, especially considering that they did start mostly near the bottom and the middle, with just a little bit on the top. I think another really fun way to go about this would be to not put any of the color on the bottom, but to put all of the color and acid on the top and let that slowly sort of go down. As for the bottom, so this darkest part of the bottom looks pretty green to me. I think some of the yellows did sink all the way down, but I do see some really brilliant layers of a deep blue and teal. I am not sure how much of the color has absorbed versus sort of is stuck like where it is, but the jar is definitely warm, and it is very, very hot out here. So I'm gonna let this continue to sit and I'll come back and check on it in a little bit. It is now just after 3 o'clock and we are no longer in the sun. So I am going to go ahead and move our jar to a sunny location. All right, I've moved my jar to the corner of the yard that will stay sunny the longest, next to my really overgrown garden. It's been a really, really hot summer. It's not sunny anywhere anymore, and the colors on this have remained mostly unchanged for a while. There's some beautiful teals, not a ton of white, a few spots that I can see from here. But anyway, I'm gonna bring this inside and I'm still gonna let it sit for a couple hours, but I think it might rain. So it's now 6:30, so what, that's about 9 hours outside? But anyway, in a little bit we'll open it up and see what we got. All right, here's our mixture. Inside we have what looks like one white spot on the outside, but the rest, we've got our darker colors, but then we've got some yellow and teal. So I'm really curious how this is gonna look, and I think that the heat sealed it. Yep. But one thing that I noticed right away, which you can see if I stick my finger in, is that the water has not cleared. That is definitely some teal up there. So I'm expecting some of the color to rinse out. And let's pour some of that out right now. But that's just the stuff on top. It is looking rather black at the top. But we've got these beautiful colors without a ton of white looking space so far. So let's pull it out. And wow!
Whoa!
All things considered, that color is in the yarn and not in our just like in the jar. This is awesome! Look at that mottled color right there. Oh, this is so cool. I think that I'm already wanting to do this again, and I would want to add more of a bright color to the top. I think that the black I think that this yarn is still really pretty and really cool, but I think it almost feels like two different yarns put together. The Breaking Black, which is amazingly modeled and super interesting, and then these bright, bright, bright blues.
Oh, that looks so good.
Thank you, honey.
I know you would kind of enjoy it. Will look really pretty. And the other big looks pretty.
Thank you, honey. I'm now going to start washing it. And we have some bleeding color, but not nearly as much as I thought from when I first opened it. I mean, that is a reasonable amount of color that's coming out right now. It's not a tiny amount of bleeding. It's a reasonable amount of bleeding, but given that this was never, like, nowhere near as hot as it would have been on the stove top, I'm adding some clear dish soap right now. Yeah, I'm expecting some color will probably bleed for a little while. I think that if you really wanted to, you could go and nuke this in the microwave, and that would help set some of the color that's rinsing out. And that is something that I might do in the future, because I love, 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 love the way that the colors spread and layered themselves from this technique. But I think that you might want, if you don't want to have as much bleeding when it comes out, then you could just take it out as it is right now, wrap it up in some plastic wrap, and go and microwave it. Of course, that's not even really defeating the purpose of the sun dyeing, because the sun dyeing and that slow, slow dyeing is what gave us this really, really cool effect on the yarn. But anyway, as you can see, I have a fair amount of rinsing to do. But once I have gotten the water clear, I am going to go hang this up to dry, and then I'll come back and share the finished dried yarn with you. But I think it's absolutely, absolutely lovely. This yarn is so much fun. I love that we preserved some of the original yellow and blue. We have very, very little white. Like, I think that this little bit might be all that's there. And then we have this broken black, where we see these reds and greens from these few drops of the black that I added on top. I'm glad I decided to add some dye on top. Not that it would have been a problem to have some white overall, but I think that the colors didn't wick up as much as they did spread out and down a little bit. Moving the yarn around a bit more, I love that we got these teeny, teeny patches of color. And then some areas where we got super, super saturated hues. Saturated enough that they're blowing out on the camera a little bit right now. I had an absolute blast with this technique. And honestly, I have already tried it again with another colorway and another yarn type. So if you want to see more of my experimentation with mason jars, solar dyeing, and all other types of dyeing, make sure you subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. I love to play around with color and yarn, and I'm always trying to think outside of the box and try things I've never done before, so we can all learn together. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and did you know that you can buy yarn that has been featured in these dyeing videos? While I cannot promise that this exact skein is still in the shop, there are dozens of skeins of yarn that have been featured in past or upcoming dyeing videos. And it's a great way to get a little bit of sneak peek of what's to come, or to bring home a part of these videos so you can play with the finished yarn while you watch me dye it all over again. You can find a link to the shop in the video description and iCard. Thank you so much for watching.